your Board of Commissioners, overseeing these dedicated county departments. And now, your County Commissioners, working together for the citizens of Jackson County.
I hereby convene this meeting of the Jackson County Board of Commissioners. It's December 14th, 2011 at 9:30 a.m. at the Jackson County Courthouse Auditorium. Please all rise with me, and I'd like to ask Craig Pruitt to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Craig?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Craig. At this time, our first item of business is item 1000. It's request for discussion of non-agenda items. There is a 5-minute limit. Members of the audience may address any item not on the agenda. State statute prohibits the Board of Commissioners from discussing a principal subject that is not on the agenda, but the Board of Commissioners does listen to your concerns and may ask staff to follow up on any questions you raise. An extension of 5-minute time limit may be approved by a majority of the board. Is there anyone wishing to speak on any non-agenda item this morning? Please come forward. Thank you, Walt, and I know who you are, but please identify yourself and your address for the record, please.
My name is Walt Fitzgerald. I live in Sams Valley. I've come here to talk to you. Good morning, County Commissioners. I've come here to talk to you about politics, which is something that everybody here ought to be pretty familiar with. I noticed on the agenda in the paper that there was an item there that I feel is an impingement against rights and liberties, which is an expansion of the, I think it's item number 4006, the system development charges. The news that I've listened to of recent out of Northern California sounds like those people down there feel like they're overregulated.
Walt, can I interrupt you real quick? That agenda item is actually a reduction of the existing SDC. We're going to cut the fee in half and 35%.
So it's pleased to hear that.
So it's not an expansion of it; it's a reduction of it. Just so you know before you commented on it.
Can't speak to
and it's on the agenda anyway. So.
I understand that. Believe me, I've got more I want to say.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
When I look at politics in general, and I'm not talking just the Jackson County, I'm talking about every aspect of federal, state government, local government, the costs of trying to do things, the freeing up the entrepreneurial spirit. I don't think we're doing enough. I'm glad to hear what Danny has said, that this is actually a reduction in those system development charges. And I'm glad to know that the people in White City can raise chickens now. I'm glad to see that, because that's not really a city anyway. It's part of the county. But I do want to say this to you. In recent times, in recent months, I have purchased a piece of property. I've tried to build a house on it, which I've almost completed. I found out that I had to do a site review for my septic system, because this place had no septic system whatsoever, an existing house there. I had to pay over $700 just for that. When it came for the time for the permit itself, I had to get it from DEQ, which is an element of government. I found out that the cost of that permit was over $1,000. So over $1,700 I've paid to the DEQ to get permission to do something that I feel is very necessary, and I think you do too, to that piece of property. So I asked the lady, I said, why is the cost of this permit so big? And she said, well, your legislative people have seen to it that you are subsidizing the DEQ through your permit cost. I said, thanks a lot. This is something I don't support. So I'm having some difficulty with some legislative people, some representatives. I don't think they're representing me. I'm opposed to the removal of the dams in Northern California, and yet I'm being forced to pay for it. And I'll bet you a lot of people don't realize how they are paying for it. It's through their electric bill. When I started to develop this piece of property, I've had a neighbor there for 37 years. She's lived on this piece of property, and she lost it. Somebody solved the title problem, and I bought it from them. And I'm probably underwater on that cost. I don't know what they did. But anyway, she's still there, but she's got to go. I couldn't take care of that woman and her autistic child because I couldn't do on that piece of property what I wanted to do. I wanted to try to do something set aside for her, but I couldn't do it because this property is not zoned that way. I couldn't put the house where I wanted to put the house because of resource zones that required that I have a 200-foot setback from the edges of those things. I ended up not doing what I wanted to do on that piece of property. I did what the county would let me do, not what I wanted to do. On my piece of property, I have all of a sudden a riparian zone. Runs the full length of the property, 50 feet on each side of the little seasonal creek that runs through that property. 100 feet for over half I'd say quarter mile. All of a sudden, in that piece of property, I can't do what I need to do or what I would like to do. I can't manage it my way. And what's happened here is my property rights have been taken from me. Land.
Go ahead and finish, please.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. The upshot of this whole thing is that I feel that county government, state government, and federal government, the status quo has not changed. We're regulating ourselves to death. I think we are fee-orienting government something awful. I can't remember the last time we had an opportunity to vote on a levy or a bond measure. It's probably because nobody would pass it. So we're resorting to fees and fines and regulations, and I think it's becoming too much of a burden for the people out there. And I think you're seeing crime reports going up. It's symptomatic. You got gold miners that can't exist in California because it's so regulated, and they come up here, and you've got a representative that denies those people rights. You've got another representative that goes to Arizona to see what they can do about denying people rights. You've got another representative in my district that caters more to his church than he does to his constituency. Somewhere along the line, I think we need to start paying attention to the direction of the ship of county. It needs some directional change, and I'm just not seeing it yet, and I'm not a happy guy over it. I think we're over-regulated, and we've got too many fees, fines, and regulations out there, and it's not the way to support local government. By the way, if I don't see you again, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Walter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on non-agenda items this morning? Anybody else wishing to speak on non-agenda items? There being none, I move on to the consent calendar. Item 20.02 is item 20.01 is minutes of the meetings, Board of Commissioners staff meeting October 20th, 2011, Board of Commissioners public hearing, small farm animals within the city, White City urban unincorporated boundary, November 30th, 2011. Item 20.02 is an order authorizing a right-of-way easement in favor of Pacific Corp Order 262-11. Chair will entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second that.
Move and second, call the roll, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so ordered and approved. Next item of business is item 30.000, public hearings. Item 30.01, just for edification, oral testimony given during a public hearing shall be limited to 5 minutes per person. If you have additional information to give beyond the 5-minute limit, you are encouraged to submit it in writing. An extension of the time limit may be approved by a majority of the board. Item 30.01 is a public hearing in the matter of authorizing the transfer of jurisdiction of a portion of West Vilas Road to the City of Central Point, order number 263-11. Danny?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, on November 9th of 2011, the Jackson County Commissioners passed Jackson County Board Order number 241-11, which scheduled this public hearing. Pursuant to ORS 373.270, the purpose of the public hearing is to consider any objections or testimony offered by any person interested in the jurisdictional transfer and to determine whether the surrender of jurisdiction is necessary, expedient, or for the best interest of the county. Jackson County presently has jurisdiction over a portion of West Vilas Road in Central Point. The City of Central Point initiated the transfer of jurisdiction over the road to ensure it can include it in the city's street improvement program. It's in the best interest of the county to surrender jurisdiction to the city. There is no financial impact.
All right, at this time, is there anybody wishing to speak on this issue?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, John Vile, the Director of the Roads and Parks Department of Jackson County. Just a couple items that I'd want to share with you regarding this jurisdictional exchange and as well as the next item on the agenda as well. As you know, there is a large inequity regarding the management of county roads within the city limits of a city. The funds that are collected through SDC, street utility fees, and other methods all go to the city, but the county is left with maintaining the road, and they don't have a mechanism through those funding sources to do the capital improvements to improve the streets within the city. So this inequity is something that has been recognized by the Board of Commissioners and by the Budget Committee, and our department's been directed to be very aggressive and look for all opportunities to complete jurisdictional exchanges with the cities to where we can get these county roads in cities' hands where I think they'll be better managed and the capital funds can then flow to that facility to improve it in the future. Recently, last year, we passed a board order or a new county policy rather, that stopped this practice from expanding, but we still have quite a few roads within city limits and within the urban grounds boundary that we're going to be dealing with, but at least we have stopped the problem of this issue growing in the future. So we have been looking for every opportunity to complete jurisdictional exchanges. Over the last 3 years, we've transferred 10 roads within the city limits to 3 different cities. About 4 miles is what was completed over the last 3 years, which constitutes about 10% of the total road mileage within the city. In the cities. One thing I do want to make clear, and for anybody watching that have questions, is the transfer jurisdiction does not affect your tax rates. We frequently get questions about, well, if this road goes down to the city, now my taxes will go up. The property's already been annexed. They are already in the city, and so all this does is get the ownership of the road, the facility that people are driving on, into the proper jurisdiction so it can be better managed. Just to give you an example of those 10 facilities that have been transferred over the last 3 years, that just is a breakdown of them there. So quite a few of them are in Jacksonville, part of a larger jurisdictional exchange issue. The Ross Lane North and West Main Streets in the city of Medford, and then 3 roads in the city of Central Point. Regarding this particular agenda item, the section of road that is being looked at transferred goes from Naples Drive, located right there, to the edge of the property, to the east city limits of the city of Central Point. As Danny noted, this was a jurisdictional exchange that was requested by the city to better manage that facility, and we fully support it, and we'd ask that you approve this, this order. Any questions?
Any questions of
I just have one. John, that looks like a section that's only about 500 feet long. Is that right?
About 600 feet.
600.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So how many miles, and I know you know this on the top of your head, how many miles of county roads do we have in city municipalities?
With the changes that I noted today, we have about 37 miles currently within the city limits, and around 70 miles that are in the urban growth boundary are ready. So those, when those properties annex, we don't have a mechanism to force the cities to take those. So in total, we have about 127 miles inside the urban growth boundaries that we're going to be dealing with over the years to try to get that transfer changed. As I noted, the policy was changed, so we've stopped the bleeding in a sense. That number's not going to grow, but we got almost 130 miles that we're going to have to figure out how to deal with in the future.
Any other questions of John?
No.
All right. Anybody else wishing to speak on this issue? Anybody else wishing to speak on this issue? All right, I hereby close the public hearing. And you did address the issue, John, your testimony did address the issue on West McAndrews Road as well? Or did you want to talk to that issue additionally?
I think we have
Okay, all right, we'll have a separate public hearing. Okay. All right, I close that public hearing. Chair will entertain a motion on the order. On 26311.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move that we move 263-11 as presented.
I will second that.
Move second, call the roll, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So approved and ordered. Next item of business is 30.02, a public hearing in the matter of authorizing the transfer of jurisdiction of a portion of Ross Lane North in a portion of West McAndrews Road to City of Medford, order number 264-11. Okay, Mr. Vaughn.
Mr. Chair.
Danny.
This is similar to the previous item, obviously, and also on November 9th of 2011, Jackson County Board Order 242-11 scheduled this public hearing pursuant to ORS 373-270. This is to consider any objections or testimony offered by any person interested in the jurisdictional transfer and to determine whether the surrender of jurisdiction is necessary, expedient, or in the best interest of the county. Pursuant to ORS 373-270, subsection 6, subsection A, the City of Medford has initiated the transfer of jurisdiction over a portion of this roads as we've identified. It has been determined it's in the best interest of the county to surrender jurisdiction. There is no financial impact to the county.
All right. Mr. Weil, would you like to speak during the public testimony?
Again, John Weil, Roads and Parks Director for Jackson County. Mr. Chair and the board, this is really the conclusion, kind of the ultimate conclusion of the North Ross Lane project that we've constructed over the last couple of years. Take an opportunity to recognize Mike Kuntz, our county engineer, who under his leadership, we got that project designed, get the bid out, got it constructed well under budget and within the time frame, and actually ahead of schedule. And the project has just turned out beautifully, and we're getting lots of positive comments. So at the conclusion of this project, we basically built this thing for the City of Medford so that they would take it over. And so what's before you today is basically the completion of the jurisdictional exchange to transfer Ross Lane North to the City of Medford. There's two sections of it. The first section, which goes from West Main Street to just north of Thorn Oak Drive, is the solid line that you see here. That section is being transferred upon the approval of this order, as well as a small section of West McAndrews Road that's also highlighted there in bold. That's also being transferred. The section north of Thorn Oak Drive on North Ross Lane is outside the city limits, and so that's not being transferred today, but we signed an agreement that upon annexation, the city will accept each and every one of those sections as they annex into the city. So it'll all be automatic for those sections north of here in the future. Any questions?
All right, any questions of John?
Well, I hope folks do understand the financing process there. You gave an explanation pursuant to the previous order about how the cities can collect SDC and street funds, which the county cannot. And so to maintain those roads, it's imperative within those city limits that the city does take on that responsibility, and why we're doing it. I think there's a confusion. There is confusion amongst the public on, it's a road is a road is a road type of thing.
As long as they can drive on it, they don't care. But to those of us that manage, it makes a big difference. And like you said, it matters a lot. Now, the roads and the proper jurisdictions of where any fees collected can go right to the improvement of that road and maintenance of that road. It's a much better model than what we have today.
And Mr. Chair, Commissioner Scunner, just one clarification. The county actually can collect SDCs. Just the SDCs we collect, we can't use for these roads because they're located within the city.
Pardon me. Thank you for clarifying. I meant for the road. So. Thank you. Anyway, and I too want to say, anybody that's been on North Ross Lane and that improvement, that is an extremely nice road. Thank you, Michael.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the issue? Hereby close the public hearing. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve order number 264-11.
I'll second that.
Move to second. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bradford?
Yes.
Commissioner Scudder?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes, item so ordered and approved. We're moving on to 40.00 is discussion and deliberations. Item 40.01 is the first reading and scheduling of a second reading and public hearing in the matter of an amendment to the Jackson County Land Development Ordinance, Section 6.2.2, Table 6.2.1, and Section 6.3.1 to allow small farm animals within the White City Urban Residential WCUR zones. File number LRP 2011-0007, ordinance number 211-16. Danny.
Right, Mr. Chair. The current land development ordinance allows non-intensive agriculture as a permitted use in all non-resource zones except within White City urban residential zones. So this is something that's been part of the ordinance, I think, for about 7 years. Obviously just came to light with some sighting of people who were had some animals outside of the allowable parameters of the ordinance. At the board's direction, we did survey cities in Jackson County and found that most cities do allow small farm animals and regulate them to varying degrees. The same cities typically do not allow large animals such as cows or horses, roosters, or swine. In this case, also, Mr. Chair, this provision, our ordinance, was not something that the Board of Commissioners initiated. It was actually initiated to the county from the White City Planning Commission. But the board does have the authority through this process to amend the ordinance. It's recommended that the attached ordinance be accepted at its first reading and the second reading and public hearing be scheduled for Wednesday, December 28th, 2011 at 9:30 a.m. in this courthouse auditorium. If adopted, the ordinance would become effective February 27th of 2012. For purposes of the public, I would like to also state that although this ordinance won't become effective till February 27th of 2012, the current provision in ordinance is not being enforced, and so anyone who was cited was provided a notice of that the county did not intend to continue to enforce pending the effectuation of this ordinance.
Any questions of Danny on this issue? Any questions? Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Scudder.
On the ordinance here, on the last page that you have under 6.3.1 sub 2, it talks about all the paras there talking about which can and which can't and such. But under 2, it has alpacas, sheep, goats, and miniature horses, 3 per acre, and then it goes right on to 3 poultry. I didn't realize that those, and the rest of them, it gives exceptions, like, for example, ostriches down in subpara 4 says per acre, except in the White City urban residential districts. Do I understand that alpacas, sheep, goats, and miniature horses are allowed in White City?
They are allowed based on the appropriate amount of square footage of property or acres. They're not just only allowed in Y City, they're allowed in all agricultural.
I understand that, again, in the context of the ordinance here, and talking about where they give exceptions, except for the White City residential area. And I didn't realize that we were.
Pack of sheep and goats and miniature horses were allowed? Yeah. So I remember that came up during the hearing, so.
Where was I? Oh, okay.
Well, you were here. You were sitting right next to me.
Mr. Chair, if I might clarify, this is just the first reading setting the second reading and public hearing. The public hearing regarding this, it's a land use process, so the public hearing is just for the public to comment on whether or not the ordinance is drafted as you instructed staff from the previous public hearings you already held. In other words, the public already had the opportunity to provide input to you regarding this issue. So the public hearing is not for whether or not this is a good idea or a bad idea, it's for whether or not the ordinance is drafted as you instructed.
And that's the reason I brought this up, because I didn't remember it being drafted that way. That's
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments? All right.
I have a question, and I think we've addressed it, but I just wanted a clarification on this. The issue with the peacocks, and Ms. Madding is here, and she explained it to me once, on how, because they're restricted as well as roosters.
They have to be identified as peafowl. So.
Okay, so roosters and peafowl. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's where they're taken care of. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, staff? No. All right. No other
okay.
questions? Chair will entertain them.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the ordinance 2011-16 as presented.
Okay.
I will second that.
Moved and seconded. Call the roll, please.
Yes.
Commissioner Rashford?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes. Item 40.02 is an order guiding county departments in limiting pollution within the air quality maintenance area, order number 265-11. Danny?
Right, Mr. Chair, this order directs Jackson County departments to be proactive in the pursuit of options to limit pollution within the Medford-Ashland air quality maintenance area, commonly referred to as the AQMA, by implementing identified measures to reduce pollution through meeting Department of Environmental Quality and Environmental Protection Agency standards, including the purchase of equipment operating exclusively within the AQMA that shall comply with the Clean Air Non-Road Diesel Tier 4 rule, irrespective of the required implementation date. Mr. Chair, if I could remind the board, this is really specific to a purchase by our airport where they need to purchase a snow plow. The requirements for the tier, the Clean Air Non-Road Diesel tier requirement, is currently at Tier 3, which is a lesser restrictive rule. Tier 4 goes into effect in 2014. We're in need of equipment now. There were 4 manufacturers that bid on this. 3 of the manufacturers built the equipment to the Tier 4 rule, considering the fact that it was going to go into effect in 2014. However, 1 manufacturer submitted a bid for a Tier 3 piece of equipment. Because the FAA on grant assurances requires us to use the low bid, the Tier 3, for obvious reasons, because it's doesn't meet the Tier 4 standard, is less expensive. However, if we purchase the equipment at Tier 3, then by 2014 we're required to have Tier 4 equipment. And so by passing this order, it allows us to exempt the Tier 3 bidder based on the requirement that given in the order you passed, so that we can purchase the Tier 4 equipment, and that we won't run into a situation where we buy something that we can't use in a couple of years. There is no financial impact by this. Also, for purposes of the board, if you'll recall, we had the discussion about other equipment that may be used within the AQMA, and the roads department obviously purchases a lot of equipment that is used within the AQMA. This order is specific to equipment that is only used in the AQMA. So the roads department does use equipment in the AQMA, but they also use it in other places, so the restriction wouldn't apply to them. And I do recommend your approval.
Any discussion on the item? This was an issue that Vern Case had briefed us on, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So, all right. Any other questions?
No, there's a little confusion on the paperwork here, though. I notice I have this in two different orders, 265 and 266. 266 is actually the next one we're going to deal with. So I don't know if you got 2 of these in your packet, but one of these should be set aside, the 266 one. And this is only the 265 one that we're...
Well, we're looking at 265 right now, so...
Right, but that's what I'm saying. The same one is labeled 266 here, too.
Oh,
They're
I see.
identical, so we'd have to make sure that,
All right.
with that in mind, Mr. Chair, I would move we approve order number 265-11.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Rashford?
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes. Item 40.03 is an order authorizing an agreement for professional services with AMX International, Inc., order number 266-11.
Mr. Chair, just for purposes of clarification, I want to make sure we get this right. This item is regarding AMX, not AQMA. they should be two different orders with two different numbers.
See, I had a 266 that was also the AQMA. It was just a
It was mismarked on your documents. So
yeah, well,
okay.
I had two of them. I had a 265 and a 266, and so we're okay.
Okay, this will be item 266.
Yeah, this is 266.
Okay, Mr. Chair, in this case, Jackson County has engaged AMX International for several years. They provide professional services on an as-needed basis. This is to assist us in our effective operation of the county's financial, budgeting, human resources, and payroll system, all which comprise one software system called Enterprise One, or commonly referred to as E1. This is a blanket agreement under which consulting engagements and professional services may be provided as requested by the county. The agreement only obligates payments for services that we request. It's not a guaranteed contract, and we commonly sometimes don't request any service in a year. This term of the agreement is November 22nd, 2011 through November 21st of 2013. It does require ratification to become effective November 22nd of 2011. It's an annual potential expense of $16,000. However, as I said, it's only an expense if we actually request service, and I do recommend your approval.
Okay, any other discussion on the item?
No,
Charlie,
I have
a
none.
motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept 266-11 as presented.
I'll second that.
Move and second, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Spillier.
Yes.
Commissioner Rashford.
Yes.
Commissioner Smith.
Yes. Item 40.04 is an order in the matter of setting fees for Apsarkaha Park and online season pass sales for Jackson County Parks, order number 267-11. Danny.
Right, Mr. Chair, as the board knows, the Parks Department does perform a variety of services in carrying out its functions of managing numerous parks and recreational areas within Jackson County. It's the goal of the Jackson County Commissioners, the Jackson County Budget Committee, as well as the Jackson County Parks Program that they operate as a self-sufficient program. In this case, the proposed fees will provide for the maintenance and operations of Apsarkaha Park, which is a unique recreational experience located at Howard Prairie Lake. And the fees are consistent with the past year's fees. In other words, these fees were already existing. They were previously being charged by the concessionaire who leased the park. That concessionaire is no longer going to lease the park. The county's going to take over operations of the park and continue to charge the same rates that were being charged. The additional fee to this is a transaction fee. This is for people who would choose to acquire their season passes online, which the county does have the capacity to allow people to do that, so that they can purchase their passes via the internet. The fee is limited to only cover the cost of providing the service. So in other words, there's a charge that the credit card companies charge for being able to do that. This fee is to pay the fee the credit card companies require. The public does have the option of not purchasing them online and not paying those fees. They can continue to acquire those fees at the location itself without a transaction fee. This is only if they want the convenience of being able to purchase it online. It's estimated that the park fees will generate approximately $30,000 annually in revenue. If approved, the fees will become effective January 1st of 2012. It is a revenue to the Parks Department of approximately $30,000 annually, and I do recommend your approval.
Any other discussion?
No.
I have a couple of questions. This per night fee, is that compatible with the fees we charge at Willow Lake?
Mr. Commissioner, yes, it is. And just by way of clarification, this is a group camp, and as we taken this park back to manage it ourselves, one of the things that we're doing is sometimes a group's not using the facility, but somebody comes in and says, can I use that cabin? Or 2 or 3 people might do it, but it's not a group. We're allowing that use, and that fee is the same that we charge for overnight camping at other parks.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other questions?
I would like to say for the good of the order that Apsarkaha is an Indian name. There was a chief, and he was one of the 5 chiefs that signed the Table Rock Treaty in 1856. Just a little trivia for you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Impressed.
I'm impressed. All right. The chair will entertain a motion on the order, and since you had that little tidbit, why don't you move the order?
All right, Mr. Chair, I move we approve order number 267-11.
I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and Chief Apsarkaha would be happy, I think so. With that said, call the roll, please.
John Ashe.
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Spillier.
Yes.
Commissioner Spillier.
Yes. Next item of business is an order authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Medford, order number 268-11. Danny?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, in this case, the City of Medford desires to have Jackson County provide weed spraying and leaf removal at the City of Medford Regional Water Reclamation Facility. Jackson County Roads and Parks vegetation crews have the equipment and skills to perform this service at a reasonable cost and in a timely manner for the City of Medford. The city agrees to pay Jackson County approximately $3,916 per year for weed spraying and leaf removal. Term of the agreement is November 1st, 2011 through October 31st of 2013. It does require ratification to become effective November 1st of 2011. It's a revenue to the Roads Department of $3,916, and I do recommend your approval.
All right. Any discussion on the item?
No.
No.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept 268-11 as presented.
I will second that.
Move and second. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Spillier.
Yes.
Commissioner Ashe.
Yes.
Commissioner Spillier.
Yes. Next item of business is 40.06, an order adding land uses to the County-wide Road Project System Development Charges, SDCs, order number 269-11. Danny?
Right, Mr. Chair, this one has a lot of explanations, so bear with me here. The purpose of the transportation system development charges is to obtain a contribution for capacity previously added along arterial and collector roads using Jackson County road funds. System development charges are authorized by ORS 223.297 to 223.314 and by Jackson County Ordinance number 91-5 and by 2000-34. Over the last couple of years, the county has seen an increase in development applications for farm stands and winery tasting rooms. These facilities currently pay SDCs at the rate of retail and commercial rates. Applicants believe this rate is probably high for most farm stands and winery tasting rooms, and staff agree that the applicants are likely correct. Jackson County's codified ordinance require the SDC methodology to be fair, and Jackson County up to this point has used the national standard for trips generations that is computed by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, commonly referred to as ITE manual, as a fair estimation of trip generation. However, in the ITE manual, there's no reference for farm stands or winery tasting rooms. So in this case, it's suggested, and in conformance with Jackson County's ordinance, for the Board of Commissioners to establish trip generation rates based on professional opinion of staff in circumstances where data does not exist to otherwise calculate a trip generation rate. Given that, and also the fact that we discussed this with you in a work session, at this point what we're recommending is that the farm stands have a trip generation rate equal to 50% of the trip generation rate for retail or commercial, or $18.15 or 18.15 trips per 1,000 square feet. At the current trip rate of 343.09, this would result in an SDC of $6.23 per square foot. In order to qualify for this rate, a farm stand should operate on seasonal basis, primarily sell locally produced farm products, and not be part of any other retail operation such as a restaurant or lodging establishment. To summarize that, basically we're proposing you reduce the rate by 50%. With regard to winery tasting rooms, staff believe they have a trip generation rate and have made a recommendation for you to consider that rate of 65% of the trip generation rate used for retail and commercial, or 23.60 trips per 1,000 square feet. At the current trip rate of $343.09, this would result in an SDC of $8.10 per square foot. In order to qualify for this rate, a winery tasting room should primarily sell products related to their wine production and not be part of another retail operation such as a restaurant or a lodging establishment. Mr. Chair, if I might add, the board has also instructed us to actually conduct a trip rate study, which we will begin to prepare, that will give us the actual trip rates. In other words, this is a recommendation based on staff opinion. We don't generally set fees by staff opinion. We feel like there likely won't be any objection since we're actually reducing the rates 50% and 35% respectively. But we will conduct an actual study. So we'll come back to you at some point regarding these rates once we have the actual trip generation information. In this case, I also want to let you know and the public know that applicants who have paid SDCs for these land uses within the last 18 months or at the higher rates, assuming you adopt this reduction in rates, may request a refund of the amount they paid from development services. According to county policy, they must request a refund. Refunds are not made without a request.
Any questions of staff?
It's a good deal.
All right.
No, I like to see this. We're being more fair and to our citizens and more accurate in our calculations.
All right. Thank you for staff for their work and effort on that. Chair will entertain a motion on the order.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve order number 269-11.
And I'll second that.
Move second. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Rasher?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, there being no further business before this board, I hereby adjourn this meeting and thank you all for attending.
You've been watching the weekly Jackson County Board of Commissioners meeting, held every Wednesday morning at 9:30. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact the commissioners at 774-6116. You can also visit www.jacksoncounty.org and click on Video and TV Center to view many of the county's latest public meetings, informational videos, and studio programs.